Hello, welcome to the channel. Today we're gonna work on some stove covers. You can find those on eBay and Etsy for like $150. We're gonna go ahead and make one, personalize it for a fraction of the cost. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. So the first thing that we have to do is make sure that we measure the stove top. I know that there's somewhat of a standard size, but they differ. Some are 22 inches, some are 24 inches. This one is 30 by 23. So make sure that you measure the stove top, and then we'll continue on. All right, so we start by cutting the piece of wood to the measurements of the stovetop. In this case, the customer told me that their stovetop was 30 inches by 23 inches. So I go ahead and cut it 30 by 23. Remember to measure twice, cut once. Okay, so I use a straight edge that I made here is a jig of just like a square, just to make sure that I can mark longer pieces of wood, such as this. This particular piece of wood I bought in a big box store. It's you can find it fairly easy. You just got to make sure that you get it in both directions, that is bigger than your stove. That way you can only use, all you have to do is just use one sheet of wood, and you can make the whole cover off of this one piece of wood. Since I have the table saw, it's a lot convenient and easier for me to get this cut. But this can also be done with a circular saw. Just make sure that you check your measurement, and then you can put a straight edge to mark it and to make sure that your circular saw does know it goes in a straight line. So you just put a straight edge that goes up against the saw, and then cut it straight down with just a straight edge as a guide. Since I work out of my garage, I don't have a workbench, so I use my table saw as a workbench. I know it's not ideal, but the space is limited. Plus, we like to put our cars in the garage at night. So my table saw, it's on wheels, so I can move it around and put it in a corner. I ran out of corners before I was able to make a workbench. Now I'm just measuring for the second cut. Again, double check it, draw a straight line, and cut it. go ahead and make that cut. We gotta make sure that it still fits on top of the stovetop, or that it is the right dimensions that we were given. Now we're going to start working on the two ends that are going to have the handles. We need to cut it to size, make sure it's the same measurement as the stovetop cover. And now we need to take this piece and split it in half to make the two ends. There's a little bit of measurement, some math, which I don't like doing in public. And then we'll rip it right down the middle. Now we go ahead and double check the length, make sure that it is the same as the board. Now here I'm marking the where the ends are gonna be, but this is the underneath of the board. This is gonna give me a pretty good reference as to where those ends are gonna be on the other side of the board. That way I can do some little holes to put some screws in them to hold on to the wood until the or forever and until the glue dries. Okay, so now I'm getting the router bit set up. I want to give it a curved edge, give it some nice decorative curve. I don't want it just to be a square. So again, you can do this by hand with a router, hand router, and you could cut these edges the same way. I want to do all 4 of them. So once we get to the main board, those lines will also help me stop where I needed to stop, so you don't go all the way through. So then you would have a curve on top of a curve, and we don't want that. So now this is where that line helps. See where I started? I started right at the line and kept going until the other line, because I don't want to take the whole full length of the board. I just want to take it to that spot, because the rest of the line is going to be covered by the end that I just routed. And now we go ahead and route that edge that is going to be sitting on top of the main board and kind of merge into the routed side of the main board. Now I'm setting my edge ruler square to the length that I want to put the screws in, and I'm gonna go ahead and mark them with my pencil just to make sure that they're all pretty even. So right here, I'm setting the edge just to make sure that it's all nice and fit together. Right after this, I'll go ahead and throw some glue on it, do the countersink holes for the screws, and then I'll put it all together with glue and screws to hold it tight. Now I'm gonna go ahead and throw some glue on there, and then we'll put the board back on and set the screws back in just to hold it and make sure to let it dry. Now we just go ahead and go with a rag and take all the little glue that's squeezed out to get all out. Now we fill the little holes that the screws are in. We fill them up with some glue. Put in the covers, let it dry for a little while, and then sew them down. Next step is to go ahead and sand it all down. This sheeter was already pre-sanded, so it didn't need a lot of sanding. I am focusing mainly on the sinkholes where I put the pieces of wood to cover the screws, and then the edges where we use the router bit Just make sure that we sand all that down and make it nice and smooth. One thing we do need to make sure is to, when we're gonna lay down that part that we already sanded, put it on top of something smooth. I am using a moving blanket here. Put it on my workbench, and then I put the piece on top so it wasn't getting scratched as I was sanding. And now we'll go ahead and hand sand the edges for the curve and make it all very nice and smooth. Then we'll go ahead and give it a good wipe down, just to make sure we get all the little pieces and everything that comes out of it. We don't want any of that hanging around when we start staining it. Thank you for watching part 1 of the DIY stovetop cover. In part 2, we're going to cover the stain, personalization, and then the finish of the cover.